Solve inequalities. Express each inequality in graph form and in interval notation. So we're going to do both of these forms. So first off, we have x is greater than negative 8. So essentially the way I deal with these is I read this from the variable side. So this says x is greater than negative 8. So I think of the idea of a number line. And this is where that graph form comes in first. And I'm going to put the number negative 8 on it. Oops. Okay, now I have to determine what x greater than negative 8 means. So that means whatever value I pick for x, it's going to be larger than negative 8. And if it's larger, I can think of it being on the right side of negative 8. So it's going to be this way. Now there's another thing to consider here also. This says greater than. Since there's not a greater than or equal to there, an equal would have had a line underneath it like this. That means greater than or equal to. Then I would include that value, but since it's not there, I'm going to use a parenthesis because a parenthesis implies I'm not using negative 8. So it's everything up until negative 8, but not negative 8. So negative 7.99999, that would be okay because that's almost negative 8. So that's what I mean. And I can keep adding 9s here, and that would be closer and closer to negative 8, but it's still not negative 8. So that's kind of how that idea works there. And that's what the parenthesis communicates to us. All right, so that's the first one for the first part. So now we have to write this in interval notation. So now we're thinking, okay, so how would this look? So keep in mind here, it's going in the positive direction, and the smallest number is very close to negative 8 on the left. So I'm going to use a parenthesis here, and I'm going to put my negative 8 there. So those are very consistent. They're the same, actually. And then comma, how far do I go? Can I go 100? Yes, I can go 1,000, I can go a million, a billion. So what I'm getting to is infinity. So this is my interval notation. So there's our answer. So now we're just going to do the same one for part B now. So there's our two answers. So we're going to do the graph first. Now this one here is going to need two numbers on it because I have a negative 6 on this side and an 18 on the other side. So I'm just going to put those in here. So negative 6. And then over here I'm going to put 18. Now again, they have to be in the right order here. I can't have the 18 on this side because negative 6 is smaller than it. And the smaller number is always on the left side. So this is what we have. So now let's figure out what this means. So my x is larger than negative 6, which means I'm on the right side of negative 6 because it's larger. So negative 5, 0, all the positive numbers are larger. And then I have the other side, which is this side here, was less than or equal to 18. So that tells me there that it has to be less than 18. So it's going to go that way. So it's going to be these two pieces together. So it's going to be in there. So to write this using the right symbols, I'm not including the negative 6 because that simply says less than. So I'm going to use a parenthesis there. Okay, and then on the other side, that says less than or equal to. Okay, so that means I'm going to use a bracket. I haven't used one of those yet, so now you can see what I do when I include it, when I have the equal underneath. Okay, that means I use a bracket there. And then all I'm going to do is draw a line across because I'm letting you know that I'm counting everything in there, but not the negative 6, but the 18 I am. And that's what the graph represents. So that's our graph for this one. So now let's talk about the interval notation. So once I have the graph form, the interval notation is very seamless for the most part. Because what I'm going to do here is use a parenthesis just like I did over there. I'm going to write my negative 6 here. And then I'm going to write my 18 on the other side. And then I'm going to use a bracket over here now. So it's very easy once I get that graph form down. So let's try the third one now. Okay, so draw my number line. So we're going to do the graph first. And this one has a -3 on it. And this one says, and remember what I said on the first one, I always read it from the variable side. A lot of people would get this wrong because normally they go from left to right in their own minds, so it messes up the direction. But if you read it from the x side, it says x is greater than -3. So that makes it really easy then, greater than. Not just greater than, but greater than or equal to 3. So I know I'm going to be on the right side of -3 because it's greater than or equal to -3. And it includes it because it says equal down there. So I'm going to use a bracket. And that's going to be, all the way out. So I go in this direction and I put an arrow. And that represents it keeps going to infinity. Okay, now the interval notation for this one, like I said for the other one, follows very closely to what I have already. The same symbols. So I use my bracket, put my -3 there. And then it keeps going on to the right. Doesn't stop, so I put infinity here. And anytime I use infinity, I have to use a parenthesis. And I didn't express that in the first one either, but I used a parenthesis there because infinity is an idea. It's larger than any number I can think of, so I can never really attain it. So that's why I always have to use parentheses when I see infinities. If that's one of my end values, so to speak. It's not really a value because it keeps going. But that's the solution sets. Graph form and interval notation.